This last week, a group of anti-Jewish Microsoft employees got together, formed what they called a worker intifada, began just causing all sorts of ruckus, vandalizing farmers markets, spreading fake blood all over Microsoft campus, strewing around fake dead bodies, gathering on bullhorns to chant literally in Arabic, "Get out Jews" and "Go away Jews." So it tells you exactly where their minds are at. They then broke into Microsoft's the office of the Microsoft president, Brad Smith, who you see on the screen right now if you're watching the video version, held an occupancy of his office. We showed you a bunch of video clips of that just yesterday and the day before. It was ridiculous. They tore up his office, caused all sorts of chaos. They went to his house by boat and started chanting all sorts of crazy things. It has been absolutely nuts. We have gotten, as of now, an official statement from Microsoft sent to the Lunduke Journal, and I'm just going to read it to you now. Quote, "Two employees were terminated today following serious breaches of company policies and our code of conduct. The first violated the business conduct policy, participated in the unlawful break-in at the executive offices and other demonstrations on campus, and was arrested by authorities on our premises on 2 occasions. The second was involved in the break-in at the executive offices and was subsequently arrested. These incidents are inconsistent with the expectations we maintain for our employees. The company is continuing to investigate and is cooperating fully with law enforcement regarding these matters." So that was the full statement that representative from Microsoft sent over to the Lunduke Journal earlier today. Also, they held a 15-minute long media briefing. And as you can see, if you're watching the video version, we have the video for it now. They made it publicly available. And it was filmed in portrait mode on someone's phone. So it was it was clearly very impromptu. It was not planned very far in advance. But the gentleman you are seeing on screen is Microsoft President Brad Smith. So he's the president of Microsoft. This is the guy who they went to his house. This is the guy who they occupied his office, and he is now going to hold a media briefing around this. I have not watched this. We're going to watch it together now. So if you're listening to the podcast, you can listen along with. I may interject at points if I have feelings about it, but we're going to go ahead and watch exactly what the president of Microsoft has to say about this group of Intifada employees. Here we go.
Obviously, this was an unusual day.
Yeah.
But I think it's most important for us at Microsoft to continue to be clear about a few principles that we are committed to pursuing.
Okay.
First, we're committed to ensuring that our human rights principles and our contractual terms of service are upheld in the Middle East. It was about 3 weeks ago that The Guardian reported a specific allegation regarding the use of Azure by the Israeli military. About 2 weeks ago, we launched a formal investigation. We have a world-class team. We are working every day to get to the bottom of what is going on, and we will. And we will uphold our human rights principles and our terms of service.
Okay.
Second, this company was built and stands today on a culture of trust with our employees, of open dialogue with our employees, and that matters deeply. We have thousands of employees in Israel that we trust. We have thousands of employees across the Middle East and North Africa who we trust. We have thousands of employees of every nationality here in Redmond who we trust. And we value their feedback. And as you can imagine, we're getting no small measure of feedback from the group that's called Jews at Microsoft, from the group that's called Palestinian Allies at Microsoft, from our group of employees across the Middle East and North Africa. They offer suggestions, and we're considering them. When they send us ideas, we think about them. I read what they say, we meet with them, and we will sustain that kind of dialogue. It is literally the lifeblood of this company. And then third, we need to keep our workplace safe and secure. We need to keep our employees secure while we honor the freedom of expression that is a hallmark of this country and American life. But obviously, when 7 folks do as they did today, storm a building, occupy an office, lock other people out of the office, plant listening devices even in crude form in the form of telephones, cell phones hidden under couches and behind books, that's not okay.
Oh, I didn't know they did that. So the worker Antifa tried to bug the office of the Microsoft president, Brad Smith. What cojones on them? Holy heavens. Can you please? Anyway, I continue.
When they're asked to leave and they refuse, that's not okay. That's why, for those 7 folks, the Redmond police literally had to take them out of the building. 2 of those 7, only 2 of those 7, are Microsoft employees.
Whoa. So 7 people. We showed you this video yesterday or the day before, or I guess it was yesterday, of them occupying his office. There were 7 of them in there. Only 2 were actually Microsoft employees. So the worker Intifada kind of led people to believe that there was more Microsoft employees there, like a higher percentage of Microsoft employees. But that turns out that's not the case. Okay.
One is a former Google employee. I think it's the closest a Google employee has ever gotten to my office in the 23 years I've been here. So we've had to act, and we have and we will. And yet at the same time, I want to be clear, we respect the freedom of expression that everyone in this country enjoys as long as they do it lawfully. And in other instances where people have, we've honored that as well. So in closing, I just want to say, look, Microsoft is not a government, it's not a country, it's a company. There are many things that we can't do to change the world, but we will do what we can and what we should. And that starts with ensuring that our human rights principles and contractual terms of service are upheld everywhere by all of our customers around the world. And we're focused on doing that today, tomorrow, and in short order, as quickly as we can, including in the Middle East. So be happy to answer questions.
Thanks, folks. I appreciate you might have questions. If you do, just kindly raise your hand. If you can state your name, the outlet that you work with, and limit yourself to a single question.
Sure. I'm Jeremy Harris with Como 4 News. Do you know how they were able to get in? This is a very secure area. Is it clear how they were able to breach this far into the building?
We have security footage, and we're looking at that, Jeremy. I would say this. The building was designed in 2002 with a certain level of security that has stood the test of time for 23 years until today. We did get a report yesterday afternoon from an employee that someone from the activist group, No Azure for Apartheid, was calling around and seeking a floor plan of this floor. So obviously, one way or another, they figured out how to get in. We'll adapt our security accordingly. We obviously need to keep our facilities safe and secure.
Megan Ulani Boynton with the Seattle Times. Mr. Smith, talking to some of these protesters, they say that Microsoft is retaliating against current employees. What's your response to that?
What I want to say is we have clear lines. If employees want to express their opinion, there's always places and ways to do that. They can share expressions of views with employees on our internal communication services. They can send petitions, and they do. And in fact, we read those petitions. We think about what people say. Anybody in this company can send anyone else. They can send to me, they can send to Satya, they can send to others an email. And we actually read those emails. We don't retaliate against people for that. People can go protest in public spaces, whether it's at the Redmond Transit Center or in a kayak on a public lake outside my house. We don't retaliate for that. But if people engage in vandalism, if they violate repeatedly our email policies, if they storm buildings, if they occupy offices, if they create threats to others, that's different. And I don't think that is a profound principle. That's just common sense.
Yeah, that actually seems pretty reasonable. I mean, honestly, I think as I'm listening to this, it sounds like Brad Smith is being a little bit nicer about it than I would probably be. I mean, they went to his house, for heaven's sakes. That is, regardless of legalities, that's just kind of a jerk move on the part of this worker intifada, no Azure for apartheid anti-Jewish group. Also, I really wish that the president of Microsoft here would come down a little bit harder on this. This group specifically called out that Jews, specifically, get out Jews, go away Jews, in and among all of their violence and their imagery of encouraging murder and everything else. This isn't just people who are protesting things a little inappropriately here. I wish he'd come down a little harder on this. Let's continue.
Sir, at the beginning, you raised the Guardian's accusation or story, or whatever, and have you seen? Do you think that there's substance to what the article says?
Well, what I would say is this: we're looking into what the Guardian reported, and yeah, I have to say I think the Guardian did a fair job in its reporting on August 6th. They talked with some of our communications folks and gave us an opportunity to learn and address some of what they said. And from my perspective, some of what they had heard turned out to be false, and we were able to address that. Some of what they heard turned out to be true, and much of what they reported now needs to be tested. And so I think their responsible step from us is clear. In this kind of situation, to go investigate and get to the truth of how our services are being used. I will say this, because I think the Guardian in one of its stories questioned our employees in Israel. We trust our employees in Israel. They are loyal Microsoft employees and have seen no evidence to date that anyone among our employees sought to deceive anyone. And of course, if we were to learn something different, whether it's there or anywhere in the world, that would be a different story. But the reality is, we have an important assignment that we took away from that report, and we are pursuing it.
That's a diplomatic response.
Yeah, Jim Nelson with King 5. As of today, what is Microsoft's relationship with the Israeli government?
So these are just for everyone who's not from the Seattle area. All these outlets, Seattle Times, Como, King 5, and whatnot, these are just local Seattle news outlets that they invited down here.
Military things that I'm sure you've been reviewing over the last several weeks.
I would say two things. The vast majority of what Microsoft does for the Israeli military, the Israeli Defense Force, is protect the cybersecurity of the state of Israel. Yeah, and that reflects the focus of our research and development center, really product development center in Israel. It's a world-leading facility for the development of cybersecurity. And that is something that we do not only with the state of Israel and the Israeli military, but it's actually done in coordination with other governments and countries in the Middle East. The collaboration between Israel and other countries like the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, under the Abraham Accords, I think is of profound importance for protecting the entire Middle East, especially from Iran and Russia and cyber threats. That is our primary focus. There are some other activities as well that involve the use of Azure for storage, for example, for processing of data, and that is what we are focused on getting to the bottom of. There are uses that are permissible, there are uses that are not, and I think it is incumbent upon us as a company, whether we're talking about Israel or anywhere in the world, and especially anywhere in the world where there's a conflict, to make sure that the lines that we have set are respected.
Yeah,
Okay.
you mentioned three things that folks had been doing to violate policies. And one was vandalism, which we understand, and there was another. But you also said violation of email policies. So what have folks been doing that have been a violation of email policy? Have they been organizing through Microsoft email?
No. Basically, we have a simple rule about using email for business purposes and mass mailings of email. And in a few cases, we have had employees that have sent emails with non-business topics with their political views to large numbers of employees. And the first thing we've done, and I think it's the right thing to do, is not to walk into somebody's office and fire them, but to sit down with somebody so that they understand the rules that we have.
Don't send
and
a
if somebody
company-wide
repeats
email.
that
Got it.
violation, then it's a different situation. But that's very different, in my view, from, say, someone who storms a building, occupies an office, or damages property and the like.
And the follow-up question, the two people that were Microsoft employees, are they facing any disciplinary measures internally because of today?
We'll take a look. I think one or two of them may have also been arrested last week. So, if somebody's been arrested twice, that's a situation that is not standard employee conduct, I think it's fair to say. And I don't think it would be regarded as standard employee conduct by any of the places where you work, frankly, any of the places where anybody works.
Todd, I'll give you the last question. And then
Todd Bishop from eQuire. Brad, one of the complaints of the group No Azure for Apartheid from earlier, prior to that recent escalation of their protest, was that Microsoft executives did not sit down with them and have a conversation. Is that something that you regret not doing? And even after these latest incidents, would you ever consider doing that in the future?
Well, the first thing I would say is we sit down frequently with our employee groups. And that includes the PAMs, the Palestinian allies at Microsoft. It includes representatives of MENA, Microsoft in the Middle East and North Africa. So we do sit down with those employee groups. Look, last week, the folks that were arrested were mostly from outside this company. 20 people were arrested. 16 have never worked at Microsoft.
Whoa.
So that's a
Really? So only of the 20 people arrested last week, originally the reporting from the police department was 18, up to 20, but 20 people arrested, only 4 were actually Microsoft employees at the Microsoft worker Intifada. That is... So where do these people come from? I mean, it's a fair question to ask at this point. Where are these people coming from? Holy heavens.
different kind of organization. And I just have to say, that kind of conduct is both, in my view, not necessary in order to get us to pay attention, but more importantly, perhaps, it distracts from the real dialogue that we must sustain with the different employee groups of multiple backgrounds, faiths, cultural attributes, nationalities, and the like. And I would just say one other thing, because I know it's been in the news today. There was a report in Bloomberg that one of our security folks had contacted somebody at the FBI, and that was a Bloomberg headline. That's something I first heard about actually last Thursday when I was sitting down to talk with Bloomberg. And having looked at it since, one of our security folks in April sent an email to the local FBI office inquiring as to whether they had any information about disruptions that they could foresee being planned here in Seattle. That's what it was about. And I then would just zoom out and end where I began. We need to uphold our human rights standards, and we will. We need to sustain the dialogue with our employees, and we are committed to doing that. It's essential that we maintain the security and safety of our campus and our facilities.
Yep.
We'll do that as well. And I think it's fair and it's appropriate at the end of the day to reflect on the fact that sometimes people look at a big company and they think it's some anonymous creation or creature. In fact, everybody who works here is a person. And we all care deeply about what has been going on in the Middle East. We care deeply about the 1,139 people who died as a result of a terrorist attack by Hamas on October 7th, 2023. The 36 children who were killed, the 251 hostages that were taken, including the 50 that have yet to be released. And we care deeply about the 61,000 civilians, for the most part, in Gaza who have died since October the 8th. The 17,000 children who have died in Gaza. The hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza today that are facing extraordinarily severe risks of famine and food insecurity. We cannot do everything that we might wish to change the world, but we know our role. We're here to provide technology in a principled and ethical way. And I want everyone to know that's our job. We'll do our job well, just as we will continue to do our broader job well of providing technology for customers around the world. So on that note, thank you very much.
Well, I mean, a little bit of a mixed bag here. So from what we know right now, 2 employees are officially terminated. 2 employees were fired. Those 2 employees were part of the break-in at and occupancy of Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft's office. Okay. As far as we know, for the events of the previous week, only one person of those have been arrested, who was also involved in the office occupancy thing, and no one has been punished for some of the other things, like the chance of Jews get out or things like that. I'm a little disappointed that the president of Microsoft didn't mention any of the extremely vulgar, violent, anti-Jewish statements that have been made by this group. I mean, you don't call for Jews get out and show imagery promoting the disemboweling of Jews at an event run by Microsoft employees. That just to be okay. I mean, that's ridiculous. That needs to be addressed directly. But it is good to see at least that they're moving towards doing something, and that at least 2 of the people were arrested. And realistically, if we're talking about, of the 20 people arrested, only 4 were actually Microsoft employees. That begs the question, how many Microsoft employees are actually involved in all of this? And at this point, have they all been arrested? Like, how many are we talking about here? It can't be that many. My understanding is from on the second day Intifada event, the one where 18 or 20 employees were arrested, there was something like 30 some odd people there. It was expressed that those were mostly Microsoft employees. So were all the rest of the people Microsoft employees, the remaining dozen or so, or was the ratio still the same? Is there really just only like 4 or 5 or 6 total Microsoft employees that are involved in this gosh darn thing? If that's the case, why aren't the remaining handful of Microsoft employees fired? Because they should be. And also, where did all those other people come from? It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous that so many outside people were kind of allowed to do this under the guise of being Microsoft employees. It was profoundly dishonest of this Intifada worker group, but that's not terribly surprising considering how vile they are. I mean, the fake blood and the fake dead bodies, and they vandalized a farmer's market, for heaven's sakes. I mean, you go after the people that sell you organic tomatoes and potatoes, you got something wrong with you. And then shouting, "Get out, Jews," in Arabic, and I mean, just terrible stuff, right? So it's not surprising that they were also very dishonest about who they even were. I want to say a little bit of a kudos to Microsoft for responding to the Lunduke Journal on this one. I think Microsoft recognized that this is an important thing, and this story is not going away. So they were transparent. I appreciate them sending along direct quotes. I appreciated them holding that media briefing, even though I wish that the Microsoft president had addressed several points that were just completely skipped over. In my opinion, some of the most important points. But it is what it is. So there you have it. That's the latest update on the Microsoft worker intifada happening there in Redmond, Washington. Thank you again to Microsoft for actually responding on that one. A lot of companies don't. A lot of companies, when they hit a real rough patch, they don't respond at all. In fact, Microsoft in the past, when I've contacted them about their issues with trans healthcare for 3-year-olds and other strange things that go on inside the company, they have just not responded at all. In fact, I've heard from multiple divisions within Microsoft where they just generally just flat out don't respond to Lunduke, but they did on this one, and I think that was a good thing. That was a good thing overall. So hopefully they open up and are a little more transparent going forward. That would be a positive thing. I love that, and hopefully these 2 firings we now know about. Hopefully that's just the first of it. Right. Hopefully there's more firings. Hopefully Microsoft comes down harder on these people because they deserve to be come down hard on. And I would honestly like for Microsoft to publish their names. I would like Microsoft to press charges against them far beyond just a simple firing, because what these people are doing, this Intifada group, is just vile and illegal and immoral and just awful. They're just awful examples of humanity. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for making it possible to do all of this reporting. I could not do this without you. Head to lunduke.com for all the places where you can read and listen and watch every part of the Lunduke Journal, always free on every platform we're on: Substack and Locals and X and Rumble and YouTube and Patreon and blah 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 blah, the podcast feed, all of it. So go subscribe. Keep us big tech free, keep us ad free, independent, and always non-woke. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.